Everyone, happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. We are always advocating that people eat locally sourced whole foods as much as possible. Not only these food are more nutritious, but have also lower toxic chemical burdens. These food travel less distance than foods in our grocery stores, and therefore they tend to be free of chemical preservatives or plastic wrapping that lengthens the freshness. We know that incorporating raw whole foods in our life can be adjustment for some. That's why we're really excited today to be chatting with Chef Carla Martins. And she's a raw vegan chef based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So we're going to discuss with Carla the nutritional benefit of raw foods, how to add raw foods into your diet, and some of Chef Carla's favorite recipes. So here you are. Hi, Carla. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. I was just saying that it's so awesome to talk about food on a Friday. So we can get some cooking, getting some of those delicious desserts made over the weekend.
Yes, for sure.
Tell us a little bit about your background, like how you became a chef.
Sure. So I think it's a little bit funny that I was raised by a nutritionist mother who owned a restaurant my whole life. And my whole life I said I wanted to be an architect and I never wanted to work with food. Should have been my time than that. But, when I was 20 years old, 21, I really fell in love with raw foods. And until that point in my life, I didn't really cook. I didn't care that much about being in the kitchen. Just wasn't interested. And I just fell in love with raw foods. And I was so amazed at all of the creations that one could come up with and how putting together all these different dishes. I could not believe that cashews could become a cheesecake, for example. So I was very amazed and just fell in love with it overnight. It was insane. And I had never experienced that with anything else in my life. And so first I changed my diet and eventually people were seeing, what I was bringing to work, for example, and they're like, "Can you make me a detox? I want to eat raw foods next week. Can you bring me food too?" And that's how I got started, and very unofficially until I attended culinary school. But I was already teaching classes and doing selling food for like 8 years before I attended culinary school. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. What made you gravitate to, plant-based eating?
So my mom actually, when we moved from Brazil to the United States, my mom was deeply depressed. And one day she attended a lecture by Dr. Brian Clement from Hippocrates Institute in Florida. And he talks about raw foods. And she said that it made sense for her, you know, eating as close as nature intended as possible. And she started really putting together how our food system is so broken and how we are eating so many toxins and foods that are just not natural anymore. And that is just causing us to be sick and not feel our optimal. So my mom decided to do a 10-day cleanse and at an institute in Atlanta, and she came back and she's like, "I feel so much better. I haven't felt this good in 3 years. This is amazing. I feel joy again." And so she started, working more towards that and seeing her change and just having the nudge because, she's a nutritionist. She always cared about food. So she started gifting me books and talking about it more and more. So eventually I caved and I said, "Fine, I'll give it a shot. Let me try this for a week." And I just felt so amazing. And that, I seen the changes in my body and thinking that I ate healthy, but then just changing my diet overnight and I felt so good. And it was so incredible to see how the body can change so quickly too.
Oh, wow. People might not know, like, what's the difference between, being a vegetarian versus vegan, and then like, how does it different from from being like a raw vegan?
Yeah. So vegetarians, they don't eat meat, but they still consume eggs and cheese. When you are vegan, you don't consume any animal products. And when you are raw, you don't cook your food. So, I mean, and I feel like it's way deeper than that because, for example, I feel like being vegan, vegetarian, or raw food doesn't mean being healthy to begin with. I don't think that classification is enough. I'm very grateful that I found raw foods right away and I started diving deeper into eating clean and understanding that. So today for me, it's not necessarily about being raw, not cooking my food. So when you don't cook your food, you are preserving all of the enzymes and a lot of the nutrients that can be lost when you apply heat to the food. But I feel like life is made out of balance and you don't need to be extreme in any situation. And I don't like to preach about it. But personally, I have noticed that I feel so energized when I eat more raw foods. And I like to pay attention to that. So I feel like our bodies talk. And if we get more in tune with that, and for me, getting more in tune with my body came through cleaning my diet. So nowadays, being vegan also doesn't mean that much because there's so many vegan brands out there, but they're heavily processed and they're not natural products. So it doesn't mean that much anymore to me, at least. And I like to pay attention to that. So what are you putting in your body? Did it come from nature? Is it just an ingredient, or are you eating food that has a million ingredients?
Yeah.
So all those things, in my opinion, really matter, and you need to pay attention to that. So again, that's the difference between vegetarian, vegan, and raw foods in general. But personally, I think it goes deeper than that. For me, it's not only about the animals, it's about eating clean and feeling my body as clean as possible. Because ultimately, this is our home, right?
Absolutely.
This is the only place we can change, we can't move.
Absolutely. Why do you think that people find it so hard to, adapt to eating whole raw food?
Well, I feel like, first of all, we are not taught. We are not raised this way. This is not normal anymore. This is not something that's common. So you see out there and what is normal for you, and you are raised in a family that goes to fast food restaurants or that eats Cheetos and Coca-Cola, those are the things that you do. Those are the things that you learn how to do. And on top of that, I don't feel like the world provides you with that education, and it doesn't provide you with easy access. We don't have easy access of truly healthy food, because even nowadays, you go to a vegan restaurant, there's a lot of vegan restaurants that are serving you a lot of fried food. And
I'm seeing that.
It's a little frustrating to me because they're not bringing health into it. So yeah, a lot of people will see, oh, doesn't mean anything, or oh, this person is looking like this or looking like that in terms of body image, but they're unhealthy, right? So, or I went vegan and I didn't feel good. Did you eat fried food and bread all day long and pasta all day long? What are the things that you are fueling your body? For me, it's about eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Those should be the bulk of our food, and that's what's the most important thing for me. So,
You mentioned like some. Oh, sorry.
sorry, no, but
No, you mentioned a benefit of eating like raw food, preserving the enzymes. And then what are some other reasons that people should be thinking about eating more raw food besides the enzymes?
So, well, our bodies need enzymes for everything. So when you get it from your food, you're basically saving your body a little bit of energy because you're not producing to digest your food. It comes with it, right? So it's a little bit easier for you. And then just the nutrients, because you lose a lot of the nutrients when you cook food. Steaming is still better than boiling, and then it's better than frying. And sometimes when you apply heat to your food, you can also create certain toxins. Obviously, I don't feel like it's super extreme, but I believe that everybody should be adding more raw foods to their diet because they can benefit from just having real food, just having real food the way that nature intended for you to have it.
Yeah. Where and how can someone, get in a habit of shopping for more whole and raw food?
So, I mean, we all have Whole Foods nowadays. For example, I feel like you can go to Whole Foods, it's an easy place. You can, or any supermarket really, you can just shop in the grocery section. That's mainly where I shop. I walk into the groceries, the produce section, and I find everything that I need over there. And I believe that everybody can find that in most grocery stores. I mentioned Whole Foods because I believe that they have a higher selection of organic products that I find organic to also be important because unfortunately our food is being heavily sprayed with a lot of chemicals and there are links to cancer and other diseases just from the chemicals that we are consuming. But on top of that, a lot of places also have farmers markets. And I highly suggest shopping locally and really making friends with your farmer and really learning about them because a lot of farmers might not have an organic certification, but they might be organic because it costs money to be certified. Unfortunately, it became a business. So, if you make friends with your farmer, you can understand more closely where your food is coming from and what their values are. So I feel like most cities have farmers markets, even if maybe in the winter, not, but in the summer, you can find farmers markets. You can sign up for their CSA, which are programs that you buy for the season, and those tend to be a little bit cheaper. And it's really fun because you can shop just seasonally, right? So they give you whatever, like each week they'll bring you a box with whatever produce they had, whatever crops they had that week. I used to do that back in the day with my mother, and it was just great because we didn't know what to expect, but it was fun and everything was so tasty. I remember the best tomatoes I've ever had were from this lady that had an organic farm in North Carolina.
That is amazing. What are some ways to increase the nutritional value and health benefits in your food? Do you have any tricks that people can, add certain things then to increase their nutritional value?
Well, there are different things, right? Depending on what you're eating. For example, nuts and seeds, they have enzyme inhibitors to preserve their freshness. So soaking them and sprouting them is a good way to increase nutritional value and also improving digestion. So you can soak them, and in my case, I dehydrate because I want to keep them raw, but you can roast them after. But when you soak them, you're breaking down the enzyme inhibitors and making those more easily available, just digestible. You can also sprout. Sprout is an amazing way of increasing the nutrient content of seeds and just, certain greens. And juicing, I find that juicing is fantastic for anybody because not everybody has optimal digestion nowadays. And with that comes poor assimilation of nutrients. And when you juice, you are removing the fiber. And yes, the fiber is important and the fiber is essential. However, when you juice, you're going to be absorbing all of the nutrients within minutes. Your body's not going to need to break down the fiber because you removed almost all of it. And all those nutrients are going to be readily available for your body. So I like to think of juice basically as a supplement. Instead of taking pills, you can juice your fruits and veggies and try to focus more on vegetables because when you remove the fiber, you also concentrate the sugar content. So if you're using a lot of fruits, you're getting a lot of sugar. But if you put a lot of veggies, leafy greens, and a little bit of sugar just to sweeten, a little bit of fruit to sweeten it so that it tastes good and you can get used to that, then you're absorbing all of those nutrients right away. Like I drink carrot juice sometimes and it just feels so alive right away. It's so incredible. I love it.
Wow, these are such great tips. So you mentioned drinks, like, what kind of drinks are you consider as like raw foods?
Um, so juices, smoothies, you can even make tea. You can cold brew tea, but even if you're heating up tea, that's fine because you're still getting the benefits from it. Um, there's a lot of different opinions on kombucha, for example, but that could be a good drink. We just don't want to overdo it. Also, the sugar content can be a little bit high, but it's a good way to get probiotics, which is the good bacteria that we need in our digestive system to help us digest and assimilate all the nutrients. And kefir. So not at the moment, but I used to make water kefir. So there's milk kefir and water kefir.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just little teeny tiny grains. They look like cauliflowers, and they just ferment water. You put a little bit of sugar, you put water, and they ferment. They feed off of the sugar and ferment the water. And you can add different spices or fruit juices or herbs and make a really nice carbonated beverage that's very mild in flavor. There are some companies out there that make kefir that you can also purchase nowadays, which is amazing. Since I went raw in 2008, so many companies came out with so many amazing foods. So I find personally that nowadays is way easier to eat cleaner because you don't have to make everything like I used to.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're the chef. I know you also make raw cheese. Like, what is that? How do you do that?
So I call it cheese, right? Because we play with it, but obviously it tastes different than real cheese. So I like to ferment different nuts. So I make a cream. You can make it out of macadamia nuts, which is one of my favorites, or cashews, or almonds, or even sunflower seeds. And you can mix and match those, and you ferment them for about 24 hours. So they will have that like sour, flavor and smell, and then you can season it. And I like to age them too. So there are different ways of making cheese. This is the simple one that you just make it overnight, and it smells a little sour and it tastes a little cheesy. And it's just fun. It's so fun to create with such simple ingredients that a lot of people have access to, and to have something so flavorful and so different.
Wow. But how does one get started making raw food meals?
That's a great question. So I feel like there's two types of people, right? I was the all-in overnight person, and I just went crazy, and I decided to overnight try raw foods for 7 days, and I loved it. And then I continued doing it. And there's the type of people that like to kind of dip their toes a little bit. So first of all, is just figuring out which kind of person are you and what techniques work best. But I say just start consuming more fruits, for example. Instead of reaching for a bag of chips, reach for oranges or mandarins or bananas and mangoes. It's mango season almost. I'm so excited. And just start shifting, the ingredients that you have or that you reach for. And slowly you can start clearing your pantry of things that don't serve you anymore. But educating yourself is very important. And also finding a couple recipes that you like to do, that you can do easily with the time that you have, with the equipment that you have. It doesn't need to be difficult. And you don't need to go all out because that can be scary for a lot of people. But if you start paying attention to, maybe one meal a day, even if it's just your snacks, and start substituting things, it's going to make such a huge shift in your health.
What's your go-to raw dinner and raw dessert? I mean, your fees are like, I mean, those dessert like look so amazing.
Thank you. I have dessert almost every day. So I always have desserts because that's what currently I focus on. And I make these Zen bars, which is my version of a Twix, the chocolate Twix. And I love it. But instead of all the chemicals and preservatives and fake ingredients that Twix has, Mine is made out of dates and coconut and buckwheat, and I make my own chocolate. So it's delicious. That is my go-to. I love it. I've been making them for a few years now, and I don't get tired of it. I just love it.
That is so nice. You have online courses because I feel that sometimes people are just hard to get started. But if, online courses, the education, as you mentioned, so important. If they have access, they will be much more, being able to make that first step. So what are your courses and, what can people expect from these courses?
So I have different ones. The first one that I launched was raw desserts because, again, that's my passion. I just find that raw desserts are so amazing and you can just wow anybody. You can impress people every time. Every time you make a raw dessert, everybody loves it. So that was my first course. And the course has a lot of recipes and a lot of different techniques that one can use to learn how to make raw desserts. And I have another one that's the raw basics. And I feel like that is the best one for somebody to get started because I show you very easy recipes that don't require a lot of equipment, things that are very quick. It's basically a course that I wish I had when I went raw because I remember struggling at the time. YouTube wasn't as big as it is today and there wasn't as much online content. So I just went off books and a lot of the books didn't have a lot of pictures. So I was just reading the recipe and hoping for the best. And, certain things turned out, others not so much because I had no idea what I was doing. So, and also like a lot of recipes were so hard. So time consuming, so many ingredients. So I wanted to create simple things. So I put together a lot of the staple recipes that I used to eat myself at the time that I went raw, for people to just get started. I didn't want to get them scared, just showing simple things, like making zucchini noodles. And nowadays you can even buy zucchini already spiralized, which is fantastic if you don't have the appliances or if you're traveling. And then I teach you how to make so many dressings and sauces. And those are just a game changer. If you have a good sauce, anything will be good. So that was my intention with the courses. But I have a bunch of courses and some of them are very affordable, very easy things, some more elaborate. You need a little bit more equipment. So there's things for everybody.
I love it. I love it. You also have a delivery service in your local area. Tell us about that.
Yes. So nowadays I am focusing on desserts. So I make cakes because I used to have just a meal delivery. I used to do meals back in the day, but I put that on hold in December. And just because my passion is dessert. So I've been making a lot of birthday cakes and I've catered a couple weddings this year. It's just so amazing. I love it. And then I have the wholesale desserts that are sold in some places in Delray Beach, in Fort Lauderdale, in Miami. So I'm just, my goal is to really just spread the word and make it easily, and accessible for people to eat cleaner.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to promote? I mean, I just like even before you joined, I was like, okay, everybody got to check out your feeds. Like, yeah, those raw dessert. Oh my God.
Well, I'm so passionate about teaching. And for 3 years, I was teaching at an amazing culinary school in Miami. And with the pandemic, it closed down. But I am so passionate about teaching and I am available. I make myself available for private classes or group classes nowadays. And I just love it. So anytime anybody wants an in-person class, I'm available.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for what you do and then also sharing this knowledge and also making it really simple for people to add this to their diet and then adding nutritional values and everything. This is amazing.
It has to be simple. Otherwise, we are all too scared because I feel like nutrition should be simple. There's so many ways of thinking about it and so much research and it's confusing for everybody out there. But I feel like if we just start eating as natural as possible and just, eating ingredients versus things that have a ton of ingredients, we will feel better. And that's what it is about. It's just feeling better in your own body.
Absolutely. And who doesn't like a healthy dessert?
right? Guilt free.
Yeah, guilt free. Thank you so much, Carla, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. And everyone, be sure to follow Carla and also check out those recipes and those books and the courses.
Yeah. Thank you so much
and then,
for having me.
thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.